All right.
All right. I'm going to sit down before I start talking. All right, here we go. What's up? We have a lot going on here. This is our first time. This is my first time going live with the Jackie Ray Show. So thank you guys so much for joining. I know I usually come out on Mondays, but today is our 1 month anniversary from walking out from the Long Beach Post.
I was thinking about it today. I was like, it's the 4-week
anniversary.
But who do we really want those extra 2 days? That should be vacation days.
It should be. So we are doing a very special episode, a live episode of the Jackie Ray Show. Jason Ruiz has been our spokesperson throughout this entire process. He knows a little bit more backstory as to how this process got started as well. So we're going to just chit chat for a while, give you guys some time to come in. We want you guys to ask us as many questions as possible. I know some of you have some hard questions, but ask those anyway, and we will definitely get those out to you. You can follow us. You can see this live. If you're watching this on my YouTube and you're going in the car and you think it might be easier, you can watch it on the LBM Guild Instagram and Twitter. So make sure you check it out there. Jason, tell them your handles as well, because you're still doing political news, you guys.
We are still working at the Long Beach Watchdog. The dog is always hungry, as I've been telling the PIOs at the city. But no, we're still, as whatever's happening at the Post is playing out. The reporters that are on strike and laid off are still committed to doing the thing that we love doing, which was reporting the news and telling the stories of the people that live in the city. And we're doing that right now at Substack, the Long Beach Watchdog at Substack. Feel free to check that out if you're so inclined. Subscribe.
Yes, please subscribe.
we do like money. And I mean, my handles have not changed. My photo on my Twitter and everything has changed to the Long Beach Media Guild logo, which some might say was fashioned after my adorable little pit bull Mango.
She's not little. The dog is not little.
She's small in my eyes. She's a baby. But the difference is that her ears are not clipped. I'm not a big believer in cutting the ears of dogs. She's scary enough already.
She is adorable though.
I love her. But yeah, so check out the Long Beach Watchdog. It's not, I know that we've been painted as insurrectionists. It's news that you would normally see on the Long Beach Post. And you could still see on the Long Beach Post once, we get to the negotiating table and figure out what's going to happen with the future of that publication.
Yes. So it looks like we have 12 people here. So let's go ahead and get started. Thank you guys for checking in with us, tapping in with us. Even if you're part of our guild, tap in and leave us some comments so we can see that you're there. But I just want to get started. And say again, thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure you are following us everywhere at LBM Guild and the Watchdog. You can also donate there. You can support us. We are still working, so we still need some money here.
We're having a party on Friday. And
yes.
By a party, I mean that Jules Long Beach was gracious enough to offer up Hamburger Mary's for a fundraiser that we're having Friday night. If you guys want to come and hang out, dance. I'm not a dancer, but he'll dance on Friday. Yeah, maybe on Friday. But yeah, it's all in the name of supporting local journalism, because we're still doing that. But we're just not being paid.
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of backstory, I started with the Long Beach Post May 10th of 2021. I've said this before, if you're following me on any of my social media, that I was a reactionary hire. They didn't have any Black people at the Long Beach Post, which is still fascinating to me, but obviously that was in response to the uprising and the unrest regarding George Floyd. So they realized they needed someone who was very passionate about the Black community and could speak about the Black community. They just didn't really want that to happen in real time, but that's a whole nother story. So I've been there for 3 years. Jason, however, posted a picture in our chat when he was just a wee lad when he started. How long have you been with the Post?
I've been there this was my 12th year. So I think August or around there would have been my 12-year anniversary of being at the Long Beach Post.
Yes. So we have our first question. Jason, did you see the question?
Where
didn't we get a question? I see one.
We have a question. We're working this out.
Yes, we're working out. But it looks like somebody says, why the fuss with the post? There is no app. The free model wasn't working. Why not continue with the Substack using the subscription model? That is a great question. Jason, I'll let you start with the answer.
I'm sorry, what was the first part of that?
Basically, like, why even bother with the post? Why even continue the fight? This is what I think you're saying. Why even continue to try to fight for the post?
I mean, you're right. There's obviously this back and forth in public has been very ugly, but it's been very necessary for us to tell our story. And unfortunately, that is incurring some brand damage for the post. So I will say that, yes, you are correct that there is a cliff where the post's brand is going to be too toxic for even us to want to take over. And we're trying to avoid that. Mm-hmm. We've been working diligently and I believe truthfully and in good faith behind the scenes to try to come to an amicable and peaceful resolution. To, you guys don't want to see this. You guys want your news. You don't want the back and forth. And I can tell you, I'm an introvert. I do not like being interviewed for news stories. I'm perfectly happy to sit in the back of the room, report what's happening, and go about my life. But here we are. Right. Why bother with a post? In the 12 years that I was there, in the 14, 15 years that Dennis was there, you start a news publication with 0 subscribers, 0. Mm-hmm. An email list is incredibly hard to build up. And there are tens of thousands of people who are on the Post email list. I mean, that we've put sweat equity in to build up over the 17 plus years that the Post has been in existence. So there are advantages that they have that we don't. As at the Watchdog, we are slowly seeing our reader base increase every week. Every time we put out new articles. Thank you all to our new subscribers. I understand that we got some more today, but it's a math problem for us, right? So we want to continue to do the news, but we need to increase our reach. We need to increase our subscription base, so it's a sustainable model for everybody involved. We're trying to keep those prices low, but it is expensive to live in Long Beach. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we got bills to pay, and it's not about, it's never been about making money for me. If I was about, getting the bag, I wouldn't be in journalism. It's about doing what we love, but also paying our bills.
Right. Yeah. I think if you followed me long enough, you've seen me say that time and time again. If you really want to know why we do what we do, just ask a journalist, and you'll never hear the answer. Oh, I want it to be rich and famous. No. Because journalism 101, I remember my professor walking in, he said 2 things. 1, your mic is always hot. And 2, why are you in this? Because if you're in this for money, this is the wrong profession. But for me, I got into it because I realized that there was a lack of representation, a lack of concern for my community. So it was my desire to do that for my community. And I'm going to be honest, even though it was going to still be a struggle financially, especially to live in Long Beach. This was my dream job, is my dream job, to work in a city that I love. I have literally lived in, I feel like, every city in SoCal except Watts. I think that's the only city I haven't lived in. But this is the first community that I've lived in that I love. I love the community. I love that people reach out to me. I love that people know me well here. This is the first apartment that I actually really like that I've lived in. I love my coworkers. I know people say that a lot, like, oh, we're a family. And 9 times out of 10, that's a cliche. But I hope that you guys can see that that's absolutely true for us, because we are literally fighting together and we are working very hard. So this was and is my dream situation. And that's why we are fighting for it so hard. I respect your question, because I've been saying the same thing in our chat, like, all right, let's just regroup. But like Jason says, you have to understand that there are assets that can help us regroup and move forward in a very positive, especially financial way. So I think that's part of it too.
Well, and we're having some very real conversations for alternative paths forward, right? But it's going to take a while to spin up a co-op or turn the Watchdog into, like I said, expanding that audience. Because if you're you're writing for an audience and you don't want to be shouting into the ether I mean, not that it's not about my ego. It's about just getting, information that the community needs to know to as many people in the community as possible, paid or not. I don't know what the business model is going forward, but we do appreciate you all that have signed up for even annual subscriptions, having faith in us to be here for 12 months.
Right.
We will be, but we love that gesture. It's been very heartening for everybody in the group.
Yeah. And I honestly, just on a personal note, I think it's a little bit bigger than just us at the Long Beach Post, Long Beach Media Guild. I think our society, we've seen this shift in that it's not about making sure that people have a livable wage. It's not about making sure that people who are working hard are paid are compensated properly for the work they do. It's all about the shareholders and making sure a very small percentage of people get the big bucks. And I think for us and anyone who joins a union, it's about reminding people that people are valuable. The work that they do is valuable. People should be able to have a livable wage. Yes, we understand that when it comes to big companies, nonprofits are a little different, but when it comes to big companies, sure, they don't have to make some of the cuts they're making because they're just doing that so the shareholders have more money. But you have to value people, because if you don't value people, eventually people are going to rise up. And this is part of us rising up and making sure that our voices are heard, and hopefully to empower other people. We've seen, I can't say that I was tapped into unions 100%, but since we've become a union, I get text messages or I'll see it on Twitter or Instagram. And I'm so proud of people really just standing up for themselves and making sure that they understand their own worth and are demanding, I don't even want to say asking, but are demanding that the people that they work for see their worth as well.
Do you have any questions? We're still waiting and encouraging you guys to,
Yes.
This is for you to ask questions. Like I said, I know it's been kind of probably a whirlwind of, varying sides of stories that have been, clipped and included in news stories through quotes, etc., through emails sent out by our CEO alleging us of being thieves,
former
and liars.
CEO. I guess she's still the current CEO, but she's not my CEO.
I am not. Yeah. I mean, those of you that know me, you know that I'm a little bit awkward. I'm a little bit, honestly, to call me a liar is pretty funny, because I think that I'm honest to a fault. Like,
yeah.
I can't hold the truth inside of me. So that was an interesting email. We do have a question. What have you learned about unionization and the state of workers' rights in the US through this process? I think, what have we learned? So what I've learned is that once you do become a union, it's like joining a secret club.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had, I mean, obviously through the work that, some of us have done, depending on the beats that we covered, we've obviously interacted with unions like in a professional manner through reporting and stuff like that. But those people are also, in our Rolodex of contacts. So, they started to, and not to say that we were proactively reaching out to them, like some of those people started proactively reaching out to us. And we're like, what can we do? We'll get bodies to your protests. We support you guys. This isn't about, and these are unions that we've been critical of. Like the LA County Federation of Labor, Unite Here Local 11, who I've been not critical of like personally, but just, reporting that like, hey, the community doesn't agree with, this measure RW to, raise minimum wage in Long Beach for hotel workers, right? Those unions are standing with us, which is insane. They've come to me personally and said, we were told, shouldn't get involved because it's Jason. I applaud you guys for, seeing this for what it really is, which is a labor issue. This isn't a newspaper issue. This isn't about personal vendettas or whatever. This is a black and white labor issue. And through this process, I've learned that, even some people that you've pissed off in the past will put that aside, because it's like I said, you're in a club now, and the unions have been very, very helpful. Whether, just having people come and hold signs and walk around with us and shout, lending us a bullhorn. I don't have one of those. I actually still have it on my coffee table. I'll get that back to you. I've been trying to get it back to you. But what is crazy is that, and this is something that I've just kind of known from a, forest level versus the trees, is that when you hear the word union, most people think that it's about money, which is not, that is not the case for us. Like, our board of directors have misinterpreted our efforts as being driven by money. It was driven by workplace culture, violation of labor laws. And I mean, yeah, if we ended up making more money, of course, like we would love to get raises, but like I haven't gotten a raise that wasn't legally mandated in years. But the unions, like, is a scary word for people, and that's nationally. I mean, I think that you talk about identity politics, and unions have been branded as like, anti-business, anti-progress for the economy. But the class warfare behind that is like, you have a bunch of rich people, and I'm not putting the post in this argument, because obviously we're not a bunch of rich people, right. But like I said, in general, people think that rich people have done a good job of making the word union a bad word, but
which is unfortunate, because even in this process, knowing that there is a specific attorney who it's his job to be a union busting attorney, I think when that's your job, what you're saying is you don't want people to really tap into and understand their worth. And I think that that's unfortunate, because that's all that people are saying. We have a question from Ian that I think is great. I think this is going to be a long answer, Ian, but Ian says, Brandon brought up the AJP merger idea of AGP parentheses merger idea of management, which staff rejected. He said, can you discuss that and why it was viewed as a bad move? So I'll let Jason get into the weeds of it, but I can tell you on the surface why I immediately was like, hell no. Because when we went into this nonprofit situation, we went into it, like I said, as a family. We went into it saying that we knew there might be some rough times, but we were going to face those together. We were not going to make unilateral decisions. We were going to talk about things. And I think especially the difficulty with the AJP situation is you're giving this information to a room full of reporters, and you're selling it as great, thinking we're never going to go and do our own due diligence, which is literally how we're built. So it was a very interesting situation to me to have that presented as this is a great thing, this is a good idea. And then literally Caitlin and I walked out on our phones, and it took us 5 seconds to go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I think for us to realize that we were kind of in a specific meeting, that was the onset for me. I know Jason has some deeper thoughts, but the onset for me was to realize that we had this meeting where we were presented this bag of gold, if you will, just to walk out and realize that's not what it is. I felt like I was deceived. And then your immediate thought is, if we're deceived about this, then what else have we been deceived about? But that AJP problem.
Well, I was going to say, you weren't offered a bag of gold. You were going to be laid off.
I was going to be laid off. Yeah. And that's the other thing that pissed me off about that situation, is to sell this bag of gold to us, knowing that they were going to lay us off. They also had a huge party where they were also saying, hey, this is a great thing to, people who could potentially be donors, knowing that they were going to lay us off. So it was
Jackie be the MC,
the whole MC. And I said, I didn't want to do it. And she says, well, you kind of have to do it. Anyway, go ahead, Jason.
No, I mean, so why were we against that? I mean, I think we've all seen how, conglomerates of newspapers kind of erode local coverage. I mean, not to denigrate the Press Telegram. There's obviously forces in play there that are, affecting how they're able to cover Long Beach, which is they were a Long Beach paper for decades, and now they're kind of like sometimes Long Beach. I do see that I saw this week that they do have a new City Hall reporter. I will say hello to her when I see her next week, potentially, if she's there in person. And that's good, because I've always said that, having more people covering Long Beach is good. Like, I'm not one of those reporters who's like, I have to get the scoop. I like getting scoops, but like if, the PT's reporter covers something over here and that allows me to cover something over here, that's good for you guys because you're getting two stories versus, the same story written by two different people. And I've always been about that. But what AJP was proposing was to have us, work in a, according to Melissa anyways, was that we were going to work in coordination with a small newsroom in Boyle Heights and an unnamed third newsroom to provide regional content for LA County. And, seeing how the SENG reporters are deployed to, okay, you get to cover 7 cities now.
Right.
I mean, we have people on staff that are former SENG reporters who were like not interested in doing that again. And I mean, nothing against like, the city of Hawaiian Gardens or whatever city we may have had to cover, under this model. This is something that I personally wasn't interested in. And the Long Beach Post has always been hyper local, right? We've had our issues with the community, and we've tried to bridge those divides. Thank you, Jerlene, for last month saying that you no longer hated me, or
that's progress.
Yeah, it is progress. It is progress. But that's progress that we want to keep building on. And to do that, we have to be dedicated to one city. We can't be part of a regional news team. It's just it would be a slower death for local news in Long Beach, and that's why we were opposed to it.
Yeah, and that's so when Caitlin, I see you on the chat. Hey, girl. When we started doing our research, I think one of the things that immediately stood out to me. Oh, yeah. Just so you guys know, yes, it's American Journalism Project. That they really kind of were leaning towards AI. I'm not one of those people that I'm afraid of AI. I don't think it's going to be, although I think Skynet might happen. I'm not afraid of. And if you don't know what Skynet is, that's a whole nother story. But I think that for me, AI can be as a tool to help gather information, to help you, collect your data and make it cohesive. I think it can be a helpful tool. But I think when your goal is to say, hey, AI can help us move in a way that we don't need as many staff members, then that's the problem, because no one's ever going to be able to tell the news about people like people. So you actually need that. And so the way that they were leaning into AI was problematic to me. The way that we kind of turned over a lot of proprietary information to them without a contract was problematic to me. So I just
don't give your passwords out, folks.
Man,
don't do it.
Do not do that. There was a safety issue. And then there was a judgment issue for me, because again, when you're talking about a nonprofit that we all said we were going to go into together, that we were willing to make sacrifices together. And we all, in that first meeting about going into a nonprofit, we asked, hey, do we need to take a pay cut? There was these conversations. We were told no at every turn. And then to have this decision made unilaterally out of panic. I want to be clear about that. This decision was not a good business decision. This wasn't a decision that was well thought out. This was a decision made by someone who realized they were in over their head and they panicked. And for anyone who's ever made a panic decision, that rarely works out well.
Should we move on to the next?
Yes,
I mean, some of these questions are kind of related, and I don't know who these are from, but we're going backwards. So this was addressed to me. Jason, what have city leaders you've spoken to said about all this? Are they supporting you folks, or are they staying quiet?
Good question.
So the city leaders, I'm thinking that you're talking about like electeds. So obviously you've probably seen that the Mayor Rex Richardson put out a statement, supporting a resolution. I have talked to him, and I've talked to other people in the city hall, and I think everybody kind of we're in the same space where we recognize that having a local news outlet is important. City hall, like I don't for the people who think that we're in together with City Hall, I want to phrase this carefully. We depend on each other to get messaging out. Like if City Hall was trying to get things read just by putting out press releases, that's not efficient. And also, like, the community wants an arbitrator of truth, right? The reporters to kind of like take that information, do some research, and then put together a product, which is the news, and send it out to them. And then, you know, if they still want to hate it, they can hate it. But at least, you know, there are people, presumably, who you trust, like Jackie and I, kind of going through the stuff that's put out by City Hall, and getting the information out there to you. Some of it is obviously very straightforward. Like, I mean, a good example of this is like during the pandemic, when we were just trying to let people know, when can you make an appointment to get a vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
Where can you go? Where can you go get tested? How many, you know, how many cases are there in Long Beach? When are restaurants shutting down? That's all just very useful information to the public, but we were able to, because we have a reach and people, you know, subscribe to the post, we're able to amplify that important information from City Hall. Yes, a small percentage, I would say, of our coverage is critical of City Hall, but you know, people there are, you know, smart enough and also adult enough to recognize that they need the other 90% of our coverage to foster a healthy democracy in the city, but also just to get like relevant information out to when there's a beach cleanup this Saturday, check in on things to do in the Watchdog today.
Yes.
It's just stuff like that to get it out. So yes, they've been supportive. Some have been more public about it than others, but I think that, you know, everybody in the end wants this to be resolved because they know that local news is important, and that's where we're at too. We want this to be resolved. Nobody's winning in this situation. We're not winning. We're unemployed. Well, I'm employed technically, but we're not getting paid, right? So we're not winning. The Post isn't winning because their product is just cratering because they're putting out Wire and Cal Matter stories about tortillas that there's no connection to Long Beach, other than, yes, grocery stores in Long Beach sell tortillas and whatever. But I mean, most of all, and what's important to us is that you guys are losing because you're not getting the quality content that you should be getting. And it's because, you know, one side doesn't want to negotiate.
Yep.
I'm ready to negotiate right now. We will stop this live right now.
Sure will. Be like, see you later.
Yeah, to negotiate.
Yep. We have another question from Ruth. This is a good question too, and I've heard this before. If finances at the Long Beach Post are so shaky, won't a boycott make it go under? So that's a great question. But I think for me, and I'm sure Jason has thoughts, for me, a boycott is never specifically about, hey, we want you to go under. The boycott is always about, we see what you're doing. We don't like the action you're taking. And if you appreciate our money, then you need to act accordingly. We saw this with McDonald's. We saw this with Starbucks. There were specific reasons why they boycotted those companies. Nobody thought that it was going to go under, but it was, we understand that money makes the world go round. We live in a very capitalistic society, and people are starting to understand the value of their own dollar. If you want my dollar, you have to act ethically. And so that's what this boycott is about. This boycott is about saying, we see that you are acting unethically. We also know that you need us to not only subscribe, you need us to tap in, you need us, all those clicks, all of that is worth something. You need that from us. And since you need that from us, this is what we need from you. We need you to act ethically. We need you to do the right thing by the people that you once employed or are currently employing. And if we are going to trust you as the biggest publication in Long Beach, we need you to act ethically. So that's what the boycott is about for me. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, the boycott also is a tool which becomes more effective the more of you that don't engage with the Post, to make them, you know, come to the negotiation table. Because if they're able to carry on business as usual and people continue to subscribe, or, you know, advertisers and grants keep flowing in, they don't have to listen to us because they're, how many people are working right now? There's like four people, including the CEO, are working. Well, actually, I did see a new byline from a reporter that nobody knows. So apparently they've
I saw a byline from Thomas Cordova.
But I mean, my point is that they have a smaller pool of people to employ. So I mean, their horizon line has been extended, and as long as that money keeps coming in, this is going to keep being drawn out. Right. So yes, we tried, and I think that you might have noticed this, that we didn't initially call for a boycott because we know that, you know, if we are to come back, like, we need that money to be there, and it's hard to get people to unsubscribe and then subscribe again. So we were very delicate with that. But I mean, as this is dragged on to week 4 now, and management has made it clear that they are not serious about seeking a resolution to this. Yeah, I would say that boycotting is something that you and everybody else in the city that cares about local journalism should be doing right now, because what the Post is putting out is embarrassing.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to send an email and tell them why you are boycotting. Tell them that you are eager to return back to the Long Beach Post, but in order to do that, they're going to have to move in good faith and negotiate with our union, and after that, move ethically forward. So I would encourage you to send an email, but definitely I'm still encouraging you to boycott.
This next question. This may have been asked before, so I apologize up front. It has not. If the Post were to rehire all or some of you, what would happen to the Guild? Will some of you hold out if only some are rehired? Okay, so what would happen to the Guild? The formation of the union was not some parlor trick to try to, have some like short-term stopgap to, whatever was happening with the finances at the Post. It was to create an atmosphere where the workers at the Post are protected under, a collective bargaining agreement, and with the power of the Media Guild of the West behind us, negotiating with us for that contract. So if we are to go back, however many of us that would be, the Guild, we would still be a union. What would happen if not all of us? Will some of us hold out if only some are rehired? I don't know that we've got to that point yet.
Yeah, and even when you said it, I was like, I don't think we've even talked about that yet.
Right.
I think I'm just going to, this is conjecture on my part, but I think there would have to be some sort of understanding as to why we couldn't all be hired back. Somebody else asked earlier about finances. We are all very aware of the finances and the financial situation of the Long Beach Post. The problem we're having is that some of those financial woes could have been avoided. So if you're not going to hire us all back, there would have to be a very good reason as to why. And then we would probably have a conversation. But none of us, we've all said, even when we started this process, we all said to each other, if you can't afford to go on strike, if you absolutely have to work, we understand you. We're still going to move in this way. But we've been very, very supportive of one another. And I can't see that changing if we come to a deal.
Well, I mean, and 4 weeks ago I don't know, it was pretty late. It was like
it was
4 weeks ago, 12 hours from now. It was a very late meeting that we had the night that we walked out. We all sat around a kitchen table and we passed around a laptop with a spreadsheet on it with options for what you would be willing to do financially to make sure that as many as of your colleagues as possible could come back to work under this new model, which so let's do the visual. So 9 people laid off, right? Okay, so the budget's here. Our budget with bringing people back was here. Right. So and that involved some people being willing to work part-time, some people willing to do contract work. I myself signed up for a 20% pay reduction. And this is a plan that the board of directors is aware that we have worked out. Zero interest in hearing it. But that's speaks to the commitment, I think, of the people who are laid off and who are on strike to make this work in a way that management never even imagined or even asked anybody to. I mean, look what's happening at LA Taco, right?
Right.
They furloughed everybody because they're trying to figure, instead of just making drastic cuts, furloughed everybody. They're having a really effective fundraising drive right now. And if you haven't already subscribed to LA Taco, I encourage you to do that. They obviously provide different coverage than what we do, but they do cover Long Beach a lot of the times. They're very involved in certain beats in Long Beach. So but the point is that management made no overtures to fix the problem short of just cutting positions.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is, while we all have volunteered for pay cuts, management has not.
Management got a raise. Melissa got a raise.
And we got layoffs.
Yeah, that's our chant.
That is a chant that we've had at the protest. But I mean, it's something that, we to have so many people like invested in this idea of local journalism to be able to continue forward, and for people pretty substantial cuts to their own finances, like in the name of solidarity with their colleagues, and to have management just show zero interest in hearing that, it's really it's astounding. But also it's astounding because they continue to put out this messaging that they're committed to providing local coverage to the community. And I don't know if that means by posting city news service stories all the time, but I mean, it's not great. But let's see. Next question.
Let's go to Johnny. Johnny says, for comparison, this is going to be a tough one. For comparison, what was LB's annual profit when it was running as a for-profit organization?
And we have a cheat sheet from somebody who actually does business.
Yes.
Because Jackie and I are reporters.
Right.
I show up, do my job. Like, I'm not involved in the money. But the answer is that the Post never turned a profit under our previous ownership. The goal has never been to make a profit, but to achieve a break-even sustainability point. And if we move forward with a co-op, that will be our goal too. So, if and when we start asking you all for support financially to launch a sustainable version of the Watchdog, it's not about, there's no shareholders. We're not going to be nobody's going to buy a yacht.
Yeah. I will say though that what somebody asked earlier, like, why not just go forward with the Watchdog? The Watchdog is very exciting to me just because I do believe this is how journalism is supposed to be. It's supposed to be people who are passionate about getting the news out, and we're just supposed to be able to pay our bills. I think the second you have a for-profit news organization is when you get into some trouble.
Yeah. And a little bit more context again from our business liaison over here to our left. The model, it's going to rely on a combination of paid subscribers, business advertisers, philanthropic support, and community fundraisers like the one that we're having on Friday at Hamburger Mary's.
Be there or be square.
There, if you don't know where it's at, it's third and Pine.
Do they still say be there or be squared? Is that still a thing? It is now. Be there or be squared.
Well, we're old. It's still a thing for us. So, I mean, not to, I just said I wasn't involved with the money, but I am right now.
Yes.
If you are able to and are inclined to, we would love to see you out there Friday night at Hamburger Mary's. It's late. It's at, I believe it's 9 o'clock, 9:30. Where's our flyer? Show up at 9.
Yeah.
I'll chat with you for half an hour.
Yep.
We can talk some more. I think we have another question.
Yeah, on YouTube, Charles Omar says, has the Guild been in contact with student journalists about management practices? I worry about them trying to lure grads with money in a chaotic industry and the workplace they'll be subjected to. That's a good point.
Yes. So we had an intern from Cal State Long Beach before all of this broke out, and she's very sweet. She asked if she could send our community call to action. What is it? If you go to any of our social medias, the Long Beach Media Guild's social medias on X. I hate calling it X.
I still call it Twitter.
I call it Twitter too. Or Instagram. There's a link tree with, and some of you all maybe have filled it out already, where it was a call to action, a letter sent to the board telling them to, get serious about negotiating, etc. But her name is Crystal. She was very sweet. She was like, can I send this to, my Slack with at the 49er, the Daily 49er? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, it was, that part of it was kind of proactive on her part. And I think that the student journalists understand what's happening. They're not dumb. They read the news, and they know that what is happening at the Long Beach Post right now is not good. And I don't think that a lot of them want to be a part of it. I mean, but ultimately, people are going to make decisions about having a job. I've decided to not have one right now,
Mm-hmm.
to stand with my colleagues. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that anybody here is going to shame a student journalist from taking a position. We would ask that they don't, and hold the line with us. But yes, we've been in contact with them, and I think that they're very much aware of what's happening here at this news publication.
I love Carlos's follow-up. He says, I also think it's valuable for student journalists to learn about concepts like solidarity and unions, considering the state of the industry. It frustrates me. This wasn't taught in my journalism school. It was not taught in my journalism school either, to be honest. And I have a broadcasting background. So broadcasting is very different. I don't want to say very different because I've seen it happen at newspapers as well. But the broadcasting world is cutthroat. It is every man for themselves. Like you're not even just trying to scoop other stations, you're trying to scoop other reporters in your newsroom. So it's a very cutthroat situation. But I do think if we really respect journalism and the integrity of journalism, and we value what it means to the community, we as journalists also have to move away from that. So I do love this shift that we're seeing. I do agree with you. We need to do our due diligence to let people know that as journalists, we have to stand for each other, even if we're not at the same publication. So I agree with that. And it's unfortunate that it's not taught, but we will get the message out.
Yeah. I also was not taught about solidarity at my J school, which is Cal State Long Beach. I was on campus yesterday as an esteemed panelist. That was fun. Good seeing, good seeing some of my old professors and some of our board members, and yeah, it was fun. But I mean, what the message that I left, I mean, I tried my best to be respectful and not use the panel as a megaphone for what is happening here. Like I said, they know what's happening. They didn't need me to hijack the event to let them know about it. But what I left them with is that your credibility is your currency in not only this job, I mean, especially in this job, this field, but I mean, in anything, just in friendships, in talking to strangers,
right?
Which is a big part of this job, until they become sources and friends or friendly people. But yeah, I think that, and you've probably seen reporting, maybe not so much, straight to the point, but I think that the newer generation does not view employment the same way that past generations have. And
that's a good thing.
Well, I mean, there's more of a focus on quality of life. I mean, you've seen reporting like nobody wants to work. People want to have a 4-day workday. And it's like, well, I don't want a 6-day workday. I don't want a 7-day workday, which is what we have to do periodically at the Post, because you have to work weekend shifts without overtime. But yeah, let's go to the next question.
Oh, I think we got it wrong earlier. I don't know what time we said it started, but the event, Stephanie is in the chat. She says the event starts at 9:30. Start lining up at 9:30. Event is from 10 p.m. to close.
I said 9:30.
You did?
Yeah. I said 9 and then I said 9:30, but
I missed it.
I saw a flyer on campus saying the Long Beach Journalism Initiative is under federal investigation. Can you explain what this means?
I love how we both blank stare at each other like, who's going to get into the federal investigation?
Who asked that question? What does that mean? So the National Labor Board, right? The National Labor Relations Board, is a federal government, is an entity of the federal government. It's not like the president, right? It's not the DOJ, but it is a federal government entity that investigates workplace malfeasance, as some have alleged that has happened at the Post. So the reason why, and if you haven't checked this out, I think it could be more succinctly and eloquently presented at the story on the Watchdog. But I don't even feel like, as a reporter, like I want to say allege, but like as a person that experienced this, like it's not an allegation.
Like, this is what happened.
This is what happened. But we're going to be professional, and I'm going to say the A word. the allegations against the management at the Post is that, well, there are a few, but the one that is being investigated right now is that the unionization process led to retaliatory layoffs at the Post.
Right.
So we knew that there was a list of people who were going to be laid off. Jackie was on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Our business guy was on that list. I was not. I was, when this meeting in late February, which was like a week and a half or 2 weeks after our open house.
Yes.
So we had this meeting, a staff meeting, where we were told that, like, oh man, guys, money's not great. Layoffs are going to have to happen. And people are like, what? Like, we just had a fundraiser where everybody, like, I mean, presumably
where you paraded us out. Like, isn't this the best team in the world?
Right. So, I mean, that was interesting timing, but we knew that there was a list of 7 people that were going to be laid off. And we knew who was on the list. After that meeting, as one might feel like they need to go have a drink, a lot of my colleagues left. They went and I didn't go because I was actually waiting for a story to be edited before I went home. I needed to, it's just better to be there in person if they have questions instead of like settling it on Slack or something. I hate communicating that way. So I stayed behind and I was told, like, Jason, you don't need to worry about your job. Like, this, you're not going to get laid off. I said, okay, cool. Like, but internally, I'm like, that doesn't make me feel good for the people who are. And the several other people were given the same message. Like, Brandon, you don't have to worry about your job. Kat, our one of our editors, you don't have to worry about your job. Like, you're part of the plan going forward, right? However, after we unionized, we all signed our cards, our authorization cards, I think on March 13th.
Mm-hmm.
We sent a letter to our board of directors asking them to voluntarily recognize our union because it was 100% support. Like, why are we going to waste time on an election? It's kind of stupid and wastes time. No response. So, and then a week after that was when Melissa had her meeting with everybody. It is the 1 month anniversary of that meeting today, where she said that she was going to lay people off the next day. And that was after board members, the chair of the board, who I met with privately with Kat Schuster, our former editor. And we were promised that there was going to be an HR investigation into the allegations that we made. And B, that there was going to be no merger with any kind of news entity or layoffs until that HR investigation was complete. I've still yet to talk to any HR person. You've never talked to an HR person? I've never
talked to an HR person.
We do know that one was hired because
at $240 an hour.
Right, $245, I think.
Yeah,
which is approximately 7.5 times what I make per hour. So 7.5 reporters that we don't have money for because we had to lay off, 9 people. The claim, though, is that 3 of those people were safe. We all signed that letter to the board saying that we were unionizing. And then all of a sudden, 3 of those people who were safe were no longer on the good side of that layoff line. Mm-hmm. Melissa has also made comments openly and privately to other people that she would fire people if they had unionized the workplace. Mm-hmm. So that is what is being investigated right now by the NLRB. There are other workplace violations. I mean, for instance, we were asked to volunteer for 2 weeks in November when there was this weird gray area between when our previous management, our previous ownership dissolved the company, and then the nonprofit didn't start until December 1st. We had we always have meetings. I hate meetings because I'm at meetings for work. I don't want to do meetings at work. So, but we have staff meetings, and in November, Melissa was like, so we're going to have this 2-week period where everybody's going to be laid off, and then we start work on the 1st. But like, basically, the newspaper needs to continue to function. So we're going to ask you guys to volunteer. People started asking questions like, what happens if I don't volunteer? are we going to be paid? And the answer to that was no. And the reason why we were able to volunteer was because we were a nonprofit now, and they can accept volunteer hours. So people were obviously like very upset about that. And I had 2 conversations with her before this volunteer period started. I let her know that people in the office were not happy,
right?
Myself included. I don't work for free, except for right now. I'm working for free right now, but she was not unaware that people were upset about this and that it was illegal. I brought it up to her. I said, hey, like, this is illegal, and people are upset. And I said, right now you're losing the locker room. If you go forward with this, you're going to lose the locker room. Said this in November. She didn't care. She said people should be happy, or I'm sorry, she said people thankful to have jobs,
yes,
was what we were told. So let's fast forward to that meeting 4 weeks ago. We were all told that the HR person that none of us have talked to had advised Melissa and the board that, maybe we need to pay them for those 2 weeks because it was kind of illegal to make them work for free. So we did get those 2 weeks paid. That was not something that we were looking for. I actually made that clear to the board. When we did meet with them over Zoom, that this was not about getting the wages that we should have been paid. Like, we understand that the Post is, as other newspapers are too, in, not good financial standing, but like, this is not about money. We're not trying to recoup money. Like, I've already survived that 2 weeks without money. But we did get paid for it because, it was illegal.
But the fact that our CEO had to be advised that was illegal it was troubling, because Jason, everybody already told her. We had already told her, but that's the key of that investigation. We'll keep you guys posted. Make sure you are subscribed to the Watchdog.
Question from James.
James
S. Esquire. She was at the panel, ! Question mark, ! Question mark. It goes on. Yes. Moved to the back of the room though, when the panel started, and I was in the front of the room. So that was funny.
Yeah, she's interesting.
Let's
we're almost hitting the hour, so we got about 7 more minutes. So get these questions in quickly.
And Phil, honestly, like, my contact information has not changed. I've always used my personal cell phone number. I'm more than happy to get into the weeds with anybody who wants to know what's happening. I know that we've been discredited by our former employer as, people who are just upset about being laid off. People, they've called us with a very broad brush, the L word, liars, unethical. I've boiled it down to this, right? Like, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing over a lie,
right?
Like, I wouldn't be foregoing a paycheck over a lie. Like, I don't mess around with it's too expensive to be messing around like that in 2024. So
I do want to address this one, because this is something I've seen circulating, and it really, if I was a cartoon character, I would be boiling red. But Johnny says, LB, Long Beach Post CEO sent an email claiming they offered to hand the Long Beach Post to the employees and resign. Why didn't you take over? Is that a lie? That is a half truth, as my dad would say. So we initially did receive that offer. We were extremely excited about that offer. However, we wanted to know certain things. When we knew that there was this HR person that was making between $240, $250 an hour.
The union busting law firm who makes who knows how much money. Maybe he's doing it pro bono, but
highly unlikely. That's his whole job. But there were certain expenditures that were very concerning to us. We wanted to know what we're walking into. So we made certain requests. We wanted to see certain documentation. We got some of those requests were met, but then they rescinded the offer.
Well, and the reason why, you wouldn't buy it. Well, maybe that's not a good analogy in 2024. Like, you wouldn't buy a house sight unseen, right? Like, you want to look under the hood of the car, especially when the offer is, you can have this car, but you can't sue me, and I'm not financially liable for anything. That was the offer.
Yeah.
So as, adults and people who want to, take over something and see it thrive, we asked to look under the hood. Let us look under that was, I mean, again, we've been painted as unreasonable, but I don't think that is an unreasonable thing to ask. And it took, if I'm remembering correctly, from the time that that offer was floated to when we finally got like the most tiny peek at the finances, it took 6 days for them to provide that information. And then I think a little less than 12 hours after that, the offer was pulled. So yeah, there was an offer, but I don't think that it was in good faith.
Right. Ruth has another question. She says, so there was no real preparation for or education about what it means to be a nonprofit before the post became one. This is something I've said on every single podcast I've done about this. If you've seen me on Jerlene's show, this is something that, this is why at least I felt like we were such a family, because Melissa at the time was very honest about the fact that we were doing this because we had to do this. There were things at play with our owner that we had to do this. So we literally, most nonprofits, it takes at least a good year, minimum a good year to become a nonprofit. Most take 2 or 3, but we did it in 4 months. So, and we did it with the understanding that there wasn't a true understanding. I'm going to say that with a caveat though, but because between Dennis Dean and Atira Rodriguez, we did have the collective understanding on what it would take to go forward and how we could be very successful in doing so. But they were not tapped into their resources, their understanding, their mindsets. It was not tapped into. And we had one individual that was pushing forward. So to answer your question, yes. And I think that this is a character flaw that we can all learn to never have in our personal lives. When you set out to do something, not knowing how to do it is absolutely fine. That is okay.
Ask for help.
Exactly.
Accept help.
That's all you have to do, is you have to admit to yourself you don't know what you're doing. And usually your circle it's even if your circle doesn't have the immediate knowledge, they know somebody who does. So that didn't happen for us, and that was the downfall. We definitely had the resources within our organization to make it work, but help was not asked for.
And now we have the resources outside of that organization to hopefully make this work as we, you know, I think the picture becomes more and more clear that an alternative publication is probably going to be the direction that this goes. Again, if you're all ready to negotiate, I'm downtown right now. I will walk to that empty office building that I know is empty right now.
That's being paid. That's $6,000 a month.
6,300. Well, I don't know if they canceled you guys' parking. So might be a little bit cheaper. I don't know. Is my parking still work? The locks are changed, by the way. So I can't even go to work if I want to because my key no longer works, which is an interesting element of all this.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have any more questions? We're 2 minutes. I want the best question of the hour right now. That one's too good.
Right.
No, this is, how will you run the Watchdog differently so as to not repeat the mistakes of the post? I've said this multiple times to our group, our that's on the outside. The post was not successful because of any one person. The post has always been all of the successes of the post have come from the whole of the group. And to the point that Jackie made earlier, it's about valuing people, about letting people grow and show off their strengths, even if it's something that you personally don't think needs to be highlighted. I think that the Watchdog will have an element of equity and fairness that the post hasn't had because we're all kind of co-owners. I mean, that is the goal. Like I mentioned earlier, we're looking into a co-op. So we'll all be, co-owners of whatever, if that is the path that we end up having to go down. So there will be equity and equality, but I mean, also there won't be a boss, right? I mean, we're all adults. We can run a news. I mean, I hope that we're demonstrating that we can run a newsroom on our own still. It's a little harder because we don't have, contracts to post wire stories. But you guys don't want to know about there are plenty of Instagram accounts where you can find out who got shot last night, unfortunately.
Yes.
But we're trying to fill the gaps of like where real reporting is missing right now. And if you guys are interested in that, I implore you to follow the Watchdog.
Yes, please follow the Watchdog. You guys, thank you guys so much for joining us on my first live for the Jackie Ray Show. I'm so excited. So just a quick tidbit, if you were following the word with Jackie Ray, which was for the, wait, we have one more question.
One more. This is an important question.
Okay.
How else can we support you? We've, again, tried not to do this, but we are, this is an easy thing, I think. Don't cross the digital picket line. Don't read stories on the post. If you feel in your heart that you need to unsubscribe from the post, do that. If you want to subscribe to the Watchdog, do that. Like, I'm not going to discourage you from doing that. How else can
you can also, if you just want to do a lump sum, our GoFundMe is still running, so you can go to that. All of those links are going to be in our link tree on Instagram. So make sure you do that. And just reach out to us. And if you've got stories, reach out to us. We definitely want to still be in touch and in tune with the community. I know a lot of you guys have done that with me, and I definitely appreciate that. So, and then just keep tapping in. You can follow me on all things social media at Jackie Ray TV.
Jason Ruiz _LB on X.
Twitter.
On Twitter. I'm going to Twitter jail. I don't go to X jail. But...
And on Instagram, Juicebox.
That's right. That's me. I'm a very public person. I'm not, I don't have anything to hide except from people who are creeping on my accounts.
Yes.
But how another free thing that you could do to support us, share our stories. Like you mentioned, somebody asked earlier, like, what is the point of even trying to work with the post? Like, we need to expand our reach. So if you see stories you think it's interesting, hit reshare, retweet it. That is going to help us a lot more in the long run, because it's going to be a community effort if this thing's going to be successful, and we need you guys to help us get it's not even the message, help us get our coverage out to as many people as possible to let people know that we exist.
Yes. So follow us on Instagram and Twitter at LBM Guild. Make sure you check out the Watchdog. If you just go to that, click the link tree. There's places for you to donate. There's places for you to go to the Watchdog. When you go to the Watchdog, you can subscribe or do a donation there as well.
And the landing page for all of this information is lbwatchdog.com.
Thank you guys again for joining. If you haven't subscribed to me on my YouTube page, please do that now. Again, follow all of our social media pages. We're going to keep you in tune. If you missed the word with Jackie Ray, that was a Long Beach Post podcast, you can subscribe here. It's very similar, so make sure you do that. And like I always say, life is short, so make it good. We'll see you next time. Now I got to stand up and turn it off. I can't just fade it out. I should have thought this through.
My arm is not long enough.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in.